Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the bald explorer, out on another walk, and this time I'm in Lancing. In fact, I'm by the Lancing Manor Leisure Centre. And why am I here? Well, I'm in search of ice. Yes, ice. But before we get to ice, let's get to the leisure centre. It's called Lancing Manor because here in West Sussex, down at the foot of the South Downs and the edge of the English Channel, in this part of Lancing, and probably taking up the whole of the parish, was an old manor house that may date back to the Saxon period, certainly from the Norman period, but we do know that there was a building here in the 17th century. And we're just going to have a wander around, not so much the leisure facilities, but the walled gardens perhaps, and something interesting deep in the walled gardens at the back of the manor. And to help me is Martin Snow. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Richard.
How are you? Shading under a nice old, I was going to say oak tree, but it's not an oak tree, is it?
Old tree.
Old tree,
yes.
That'll do. It looks like it's been here a while, and,
yes.
and so have you. So let's get you warmed up.
I was starting to grow roots.
We don't want any of that. We're in Lancing Manor. We're going to go up this way. Sorry, I'm guiding you from.
Side.
That's it. Up this way through what is sort of now parkland and dog walking land, that sort of thing. There's a bowling area above us, but at the back of what is a pretty ugly building now, probably lovely inside and lots of wonderful facilities, and bounding dogs as well. There is this, at the back of it, there is the sort of the remains of a walled garden and stables and all sort of stuff that you would associate with a manor house.
That's right. Well, it's the site of the leisure centre. It's built on where the manor house was.
Yes. Now that is a fairly modern building. When do you know when that was built? The 80s or something? 90s? Or later than that?
70s or 80s.
Sometime in recent history.
Yeah.
But our manor house and the bits that remain could date from possibly the 17th century. These bits of old wall.
The bits that we see now.
Yeah.
The site is much older.
Yes.
It could possibly go back to Saxon, certainly Norman times.
Yes, absolutely. So if we wind round these lovely old walls with their bits of ivy and the remains of well, whatever these plants are, they're all very nice, and it gives you a nice indication of how wonderful it would have lived to live in the lord of the manor's property with all these little garden bits.
Yes.
Do you know when the building was finally used, Martin?
Well, it was probably in the middle of the 20th century, and then it was allowed to deteriorate.
So it was allowed to deteriorate at the end, and then I suppose they undernard the council what they were going to do with this area.
That's it.
And then, eventually somebody came up with the bright idea of a leisure facility.
Leisure centres were all the rage at the time, weren't
they? Yes. There's an area in this garden that you want to take me to. Why is that?
Well, there's an ice house remains here.
An ice house. You better just explain what an ice house is, because some people might think you're barking mad.
Well, you probably am, but I can tell you about an ice house. It was a 16th, 17th and 18th century
building?
Building.
Construction?
Construction is better, for storing ice from the winter into the summer for making confections. They didn't use it to make ice cream like we think of.
Right.
They'd use it to chill. They'd use the ice to chill a very small portion of iced confection again, as a special treat. And it became very fashionable.
Did they use it as a refrigerator to keep meat fresh and food longer?
No. They purely preserved the ice, which they collected from local ponds in the coldest part of the winter. We had more ice in those days, although today you'd think but there was a lot more ice, so they collect ice from the local pond, and it was purely to make these confections, because it was the fashion that you had these.
So the ice I've stored in this construction, this building, separated from the manor in presumably, well, we're looking at a hump here, and it's underneath the hump it would have been.
Yes, it's built of brick and arched over, and then covered with soil
to insulate it.
To insulate it. Sometimes they'd have they'd fill it up with straw to try and keep the cold in.
Yes. And was the purpose of the ice just for the winter so that they could keep it? Because obviously ice melts, but could they manage to keep it into the spring or even the summer?
Well, if they were able to get a good crop of ice, then it would keep well into the year.
Does ice come as a crop? They grow it? I suppose it does grow, doesn't it? It's crystals after all, water crystals.
It grows on the local pond.
Yes.
And they harvest the ice, and pack the ice house full. And the more ice they had, the longer it would keep. I mean, okay, that's obvious, but
okay. So if they couldn't get ice locally, though, what would they do? Hang on, before we do that, let's just walk around a little bit more, because we'll get another view of this ice house that was here. I mean, presumably there was a smallish entrance. You wouldn't want a great big wide doors going in.
No, it was as small as practical.
And you'd nip in. But I suppose my question was, if you couldn't get the ice from your local pond, where else would you get it from?
As time went on, they imported it from Norway.
Well, on a ship.
On the ship.
They didn't tow
icebergs. No.
No.
And then
pack a ship with ice.
Yeah. If you pack it full, then it stays cold and doesn't melt.
Right.
And then later they actually imported it from the Great Lakes in America and Canada.
And it's even on a journey of what, several months? You're saying it wouldn't melt?
It wouldn't melt coming across the Atlantic.
That's extraordinary, Martin, and I almost don't believe you. If that's true, then in theory, in the remains of the ice house somewhere in this clump here, you would expect, after all this time in an ice house, a speciality like ice, there might be the remains of some ice. What do you think?
Well, it's possible, isn't it?
Right.
Shall we have a look?
Let's get hunting. So as we speak, Martin is now scrabbling around in the undergrowth. Now, this is something that an industrial archaeologist is prone to do when doing their research. I should make that absolutely clear, because sometimes ancient relics are beneath the surface. So Martin, how are you doing with the searching for remnants of the ice house? Aha!
I'm glad you came.
Yeah.
Look, here we are.
Oh, you got something?
Oh, I found some. Isn't that wonderful?
So,
do you want to try some?
Yes, please.
There we are. Put that in.
There we go. It's lovely. Lovely and refreshing on a day in November. Well, swallow that nicely. Oh, I can feel that going down. Thank you, Martin. Another exciting investigation into the ice house at Lancing Manor.
That's right.
Superb. Yes. God knows where we'll be next. Out on the Antarctic, no doubt.
Right. Well, shall we skate home now?
Yes, we will skate. Whee! Until the next time, thanks so much for watching.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martin. Bye-bye.